The Devil's Notebook by Anton Lavey. Foreword. It's amazing how much fear is invoked in others by the presence of a known Satanist. People who never advertise their religious backgrounds, when confronted by a devil worshipper, suddenly become devout. How often I see crosses around the necks of those who've been informed of my arrival, as if, like Lugosi's Dracula, I will be rendered powerless. And when I'm not fazed by such precautions, the aroma of nervous sweat really fills the room. It's then that I feel sadistic, if that term ever applied. I love to see those dusty crucifixes salvaged from the bottoms of bureau drawers, unworn since catechism. The evangelical bumper stickers that might as well just say, "Kick me." The little gold crosses. The pathetic victims of Christian propaganda wearing the symbol of their role model's death around their necks like tiny electric chairs or gas chambers or hangman's nooses, actually believing it will protect them. Protect them from what? My possible cordiality and friendship? Wearing a display of dormant faith allows them to be safe, as safe and sure as their advertised deodorant, to ask me about Satanism. What is it like to be frightened of intangibles? I've never known, because I've always had my share of very real threats to my serenity. I took up Satanism not out of desperation but logical dismay that there were so many short-sighted people around me. I thought, acted, and thereupon found myself removed. And, lo and behold, I was a Satanist, a prideful outcast. If the just, the good, the righteous were exemplified by the cowering ones, I wanted no part of them. My brand of Satanism is the ultimate conscious alternative to herd mentality and institutionalized thought. It is a studied and contrived set of principles and exercises designed to liberate individuals from a contagion of mindlessness that destroys innovation. I have termed my thought Satanism because it is the most stimulating under that name. Self-discipline and motivation are affected more easily under stimulating conditions. Satanism means the opposition and epitomizes all symbols of nonconformity. Satanism calls forth the strong ability to turn a liability into an advantage and turn alienation into exclusivity. In other words, the reason it's called Satanism is because it's fun, it's accurate, and it's productive. The following collection of essays, bits and pieces representing 25 years of diabolical thought is a satanic literary exercise in the strictest sense. Each segment is an indulgence of a whim or fancy. Each was written as the mood or idea manifested itself. Whether or not what was written would be good, bad, offensive, pleasing, or even whether it would see print. Each was set to paper because to refrain from doing so would have meant self-denial. Essays that are bitter were composed with a need to ritualized bitterness, the setting, form, and style landing as the cards were dealt. Instructional or theoretical essays emerged, first as ideas which had to be recorded, then as written essays. Some have been gathering dust for many years and are included because timing demands that they be released. If they have been updated slightly, it is because popular folly has necessitated that comparisons be drawn. A devil's notebook must contain divergent observations and paradoxical theories. Like life itself, it is consistent in its inconsistency. Foreword by Anton Lavey, Durango, Mexico, 31st of August, XXVII, Anno Satanas. The Devil's Notebook. Quote, "Hell must be a pretty swell spot, because the guys that invented religion have sure been trying hard to keep everybody else out." End quote, by Al Capone. A Medicine for Melancholy, or How to Avoid the DBs. At no time in Western civilization has man accepted so willingly contrivances calculated to weaken and destroy him. Many persons have found these years, as we approach the superstitious dread of the coming millennium, to be the most tumultuous period of their lives. Upheaval, depression, disillusionment, paranoia, anguish, anxiety, illness, and every other sort of malaise imaginable. Yeats' poem, The Second Coming, expresses the social climate well. Surely an explanation, or at least speculation, is in order. Let's examine some ingredients. No overseas war is in progress which involves Americans on a personal level, patriotic or otherwise. There is no universal enemy to occupy the minds and emotions of society. Hence, enemies, threats, and other problems must emerge from a diversity of sources which are timely and easily relatable. Media reinforcement of fears and anxieties is at an all-time zenith. Primetime TV dispenses suspense and crisis, either real, newscast, or by fictional or documentary features and series. This is considered, quote, entertainment, not demoralization. If complaints are voiced that streets are unsafe to stroll, surfs unsafe for swimming, and even grazing laid unsafe for cows, quote, satanic cattle mutilation, where can one expose his or her puny human form? In the safety of an automobile? Perhaps, but what of the subliminal demoralization coupled with a sense of false security that mandatory safety devices provide? Despite rapid and radical advances in medicine, why are more people sick? Emphasis on one prompt detection of certain symptoms is supposed to prevent serious illness. With everyone listening for internal gurgles, feeling for lumps, and pondering each pain, hypersensitivity cannot be avoided. Does consuming, concern for diet, and exercise make for healthier living than sitting in the car, gobbling Big Macs? Which takes a greater toll? Fear of the effects of preservatives, chemical pump chicken, mercury-saturated fish, or the foods themselves? If you are a law-abiding citizen who is concerned about the safety of your home and family, you are made to feel like a criminal if you own a gun and are henceforth categorized as a crazed gunman with a Saturday night special. Though you know you are responsible and conscientious, you are demoralized into stigmatization nonetheless. In bygone days, before you were demoralized by static cling, it was halitosis or BO, or unsightly snaps, or non-sanforized gaposis. How easy it would be if one needed only to fret over such trivial social ostracisms. Now, in addition to ring around the collar, you are confronted by threats to your immune system, germ warfare, telephone bugging, new cancer viruses, conspiratorial politicians acting as decoys for the real rulers, government breakdown, danger in the streets, on the freeways, at the beach, rising costs of food, gasoline, higher taxes, and the unknown. Is another world watching? Are UFOs about to land in your front yard? And to the good, the threat of Satanism is still fine, scare copy. How to immunize yourself against the great DP, or demoralization process, which is inexorably reaching its plateau? 1. Recognize it for what it is. A collective phenomenon, self-perpetrating according to Malthusian law. The separation of the strong from the weak, the reactors from the perceivers. Norbert Wiener would be delighted at current examples of human thermostats and their behavior. Never before has man been so controllable and easily programmed, while foolishly considering himself more sophisticated than at any other time in his development. 2. Avoid popular amusements. Take a lesson from the ostrich, whose head-in-the-sand attitude has been universally ridiculed. If timeliness is an essential ingredient of demoralization, existentialism is a perfect vehicle. Quote, live for today, don't think about the past or the future, quote, end quote, has been misapplied to, quote, dwell on today. We must all respond to imminent situations. We either benefit from, cope with, or succumb to them. But don't go out of your way to consider any potential problem or worry if you need not. Don't socialize with those who do either. They'll bring you down. TV is not the entertainment medium it is assumed to be. Newspapers and periodicals aren't either. Pop music is, quote, concerned music, with lyrics and harmonies unconsciously gauged to the now. Films and plays are simply variants of TV fare. Even the clothes on your back integrate you into the herd unconsciously, if they are stylish. Stop and consider if whatever you buy, see, listen to, or do is popular. If it is programmed, and like it or not, so are you. Does all this imply that you need to stop all activity just because it is popular? You figure that one out. It should come easily to a Satanist. 3. Break out of the DP time/space warp by realistically and minimally dealing with the present and dwelling on the past and future. If you need to play the intrigue or crisis game, look back on past scandals and outrages. Patronize that which is out of vogue or yet not in vogue. Seek out persons who are not harbingers of present mores. Discover and share pastimes unrelated to current phobias. Surround yourself with reminders of another social climate and contemplate them as you would a crystal ball. The trend toward nostalgia is an understandable rebellion against the DPs. Its only flaw is that it too has become fashionable and only softens the impact of hardcore downers, which occupy prime time in our present lives. Reflect instead upon personally gratifying things and situations rather than those labeled nostalgia or collector's edition. Yes, I realize how tough things have been for many of you this year. For in any such softening up process, very few are unaffected. Out of the chaos, the rough beast which has slouched towards Bethlehem to be born in the year 1 is learning to stand, to walk anew, and his footfalls are creating random upheaval. The 10th key has manifested itself in the rolling thunder which has darkened the sky for Satanist and non-Satanist alike. It is for Satanists to know the whys and wherefores of their sorrows, and realizing that, like all their kin, Cain, Prometheus, Orpheus, Frankenstein, we are in part, or in whole, responsible for our own problems and those of the multitudes. An overview is essential to survival. In what has been sown, will be reaped. The roses in the garden east of Eden will have thorns. Whatever the blossom, whatever the harvest, the future belongs to us. Rege Satanas. On the importance of being evil. Volumes have charted the history of man's cruelty and tyranny. How many have considered the essential role of villainy in human development? An impartial survey would no doubt qualify the villain as unsung hero. While fusty religionists still cast Satanists in the old convenient mold, the readily obtainable literature of contemporary Satanism has inspired change in religious thought. Can we expect such an admission by modern theologians? Of course not. It is always a villain, however, who becomes the catalyst for change. Consider these still fresh examples. If Aleister Crowley had not been the world's wickedest man, the like of Gerald Gardner and Margaret Murray could not have stepped on stage for purposes of, quote, enlightenment, and Dennis Wheatley might be a starving hack. They owe their identities to Crowley's outrages. If the Hells Angels had not caused such a furor, and had not been ritualized in motion pictures like The Wild One and Scorpio Rising, a, quote, clean, wholesome interest in motorcycling and its billions of profits would not have evolved. The glamour of evil, not fun in the sun, secretly spawned the present bike movement. Pollution reduction, economical transportation, all other rationales for motorcycling are piety devices. If the late Senator Joseph McCarthy had not performed his auto de fe, there would be no movement of the politically correct. If Hitler had not singled out the Jews for discrimination, the nation of Israel might never have been realized. For every Charlie Manson, there are a million solid citizens who can bristle with righteous indignation over his crimes. The same fine folks who stand idly by while a little old lady is being mugged in broad daylight, not wanting to get involved, invariably alleviate their cowardice by hollering their heads off for stronger legislation against crime. Remember, there is no misfortune so great that somebody else can't put up with it. A villain is said to be bad, but an apathetic drone is far worse. A villain must be stigmatized so that his opponents can be considered heroic. These heroes are simply reactors who implement a change in affairs, sometimes mistaken for progress. What sets human reaction in motion? A force which is either intrinsically or contrivedly considered evil. In order for evil to serve an admirable purpose, it must have method. The lowest level would-be Satanist, who thinks he is justifying his existence by committing evil acts, is the most deluded of all. As has been amply proven, Deep South renegades like Huey Long and George Wallace, certainly considered evil by many, nevertheless exerted reaction on a large scale. The creep whose evil deed for the day consists of pulling the wings off a butterfly invariably causes no productive reaction. He cannot rightly be considered evil, simply moronic. The more grandiose the villain, the more beneficent he is to society. The small-time villain affects only the microcosm in which he operates, unless his act of villainy is considered so heinous that it spreads beyond his normal sphere of influence. When a villain attains universality, he is endowed with the mantle of devildom. However, if a real villain does not come forward to serve as a convenient embodiment of evil, thereby serving the good guy's cause, such a person must be developed and sometimes invented. If evil were by chance eradicated, the race would die of inertia, at least under the existing standards of mental and emotional development. That the villain is the most formidable enemy of boredom was proven in a rather quaint manner by a short-lived tabloid called The Good News. Feeling that the populace was weary of the standard journalistic fare of murder, rape, war, riot, scandal, and catastrophe, Good News printed just that, Good News. It valiantly lasted 2 or 3 issues before its not untimely demise. Why did it die? Good news is only really good to those directly involved. Most people lead such futile and useless lives that only bad news makes them feel better. If not better, certainly gooder. If one cannot gain recognition for anything else, he can rest well with the assurance that he is good, which in most cases equates with right. Were it not for an evil to rail against, he might just as well never have been born. Yes, evil is the great savior and sustainer of those who condemn it most. Duck-billed platitudes. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. The rich do get richer, but the poor, having little or nothing to lose, can only get richer. If diligence will not do it, then charity will. All the world loves a lover. Bosses hate lovers because they can't keep their minds on their work. The loveless hate lovers because they are envious. Even lovers have little patience with other lovers. They consider another's choice of love object inferior to their own. The best things in life are free. They may be free for you, but somebody else is paying for them. Honesty is the best policy. Should read, credibility is the best policy. Beauty is only skin deep. A balm for the ugly, who cannot help but harbor hostility because of their condition. The plain and ugly often mask hostility behind an unctuous or affable facade, which is sometimes mistaken for inner beauty. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. A sure way of making a pest of yourself. Better, if at first you don't succeed, wait and see what happens. If nothing happens, try a different approach. If still unsuccessful, try someone or somewhere else. There is no substitute for hard work. If you are what others expect of you, it matters not how much or how little you do. The Good Guy Badge. Man is a selfish creature. Everything in life is a selfish act. Man is not concerned with helping others, yet he wants others to believe he is. Inasmuch as selfishness is akin to pride, and vanity considered the devil's work, the first rule of the prideful is to make an exhibition of piety and charity, with a good guy badge to pin to his lapel. Man cannot progress one step further toward his own godhood until he removes that good guy badge. Mankind's true saviors are not those who led exemplary lives, but those who have enabled man to pass as good. Through the cause he provided against himself, Hitler enabled countless millions to become righteous. Any semblance of goodness detected in mortal enemies seems to dull the luster of the good guy badge. Good guy saints are often only winners in abstinence contests. Perceptive scholars and objective students of human nature aver that most of history's saints have surreptitiously indulged in life's rewards while offering another public picture to the naive and conditioned multitude. Leopold von Sacher-Masoch had not yet written Venus in Furs, yet religious and secular Severins were as zloty a dozen. The devil, aside from being the best friend that the church has ever had, also bestows upon the individual his mantle of goodness. In whatever allegory the devil is conjured, he becomes the reaction device for those who need him the most. Intrinsically evil people are often hypocrites who make a show of their good guy badge. Without an enemy to plague them, they could never, in any believable sense, become good. This is not to say that one should not be angered at an injustice or speak out against whatever violates one's security. That is the first law, the law of self-preservation. But we must consider the motives behind the selection of an enemy. Perhaps nothing more is threatened beyond the threat of not having an enemy. If, having a pain, you inflict sufficient torment to another area of your body, it is easy to pretend that the original pain was never there. The good guy needs a bad guy to ease the pain of his own inadequacy. This is why his enemy will never perish, for if he did, it would bring about great internal pain. Without a cause to take his mind off his own wretchedness, he would be lost. For the bored and simple, those of little or no accomplishment, those who care little whether they live or die, an enemy is essential. Their validity as human beings is measured not by what they can do or who they are, but by who they are against. Paradoxically, these are the hypocrites who shun any manifestations of negative propensities. Their vocabularies are turgid with terms like true, charitable, integrity, spiritual, equality, humanity, moral, ethical, rehabilitate, understand, empathy, etc., ad infinitum. Some of these good guys, like the fellow who wants to put pants on dogs, are rather transparent. The majority are not. My purpose here is to make hitherto undetectable good guys as visible as Freud made the lady with the closet full of Frankfurters. When self-appointed good guys are not only spotted but ridiculed for the ostentation of their badges, man will have come a step closer to the accurate evaluation of personality. The paramount need to believe in something, anything, has been definitively explained by psychologists Mortimer Ostall and Ben-Ami Sharfstein. The Need to Believe, New York, International Universities Press, Incorporated, 1954. One need not believe in a set of religious principles if one's faith in a lump of mud is sustenance enough, well and good. If, however, a set of religious tenets is weighty with contrast between good and evil, the adherents' pietistic requirements must be addressed. Those who wish to gain acceptance from so-called respectable people must be good. Their self-righteousness must be telegraphed in subtle ways, however. It isn't enough to greet everyone with a cheery, "Hello, I am a good person, so you must accept me," but by wearing one of the many available good guy badges. The genuinely worthy gain it through individual strength of personality and accomplishment. The rest attempt to gain it by attaching a label to themselves. Psychologists call this identity. Man either establishes his identity through self or through a collective phenomenon, often referred to as cause. Celebrities will often use a worthy cause to bolster a shaky identity which may have been originally built on individual ability. Public figures simply wear a good guy badge out of pragmatism. It is clear, or should be, that the great man is doing absolutely nothing of a genuinely charitable nature. Although it is a truism that every act is a selfish act, not all are harmful, and some are even beneficial to others. good guy badges exhibit tendencies which are often harmful and usually devoid of tangible justification for their existence. Rational self-interest is a virtue, but should be seen for what it is, self-interest. That is the predominant theme of Satanism. Irrational self-interest and undeserved self-righteousness are, on the other hand, hallmarks of the good guy badge. Religion, having created billions of undeserving or unworthy followers, is the number one wholesaler of good guy badges. Christian doctrine has become outmoded and unbelievable, even to the most feeble-minded. One wonders, how is it possible for people to be so stupid as to believe the lies they are taught by priests and ministers? Could it be that among the psychological crutches that Christian dogma has provided, the most obvious is the easy to overlook? Beyond its horrors and personal repressions, Christianity provides an ingredient essential to the masses' emotional equilibrium, the good guy badge. The old carnival fortune tellers call a similar ploy casing the mark. Sending a client away with more problems than when he arrived, the fortune teller makes him feel glad that he arrived in time. The New Age psychics, on the other hand, simply betray the diminishing quantity of self-aware fortune tellers. In believing their own bullshit, they don conspicuous good guy badges, as do the other assorted seers, prophets, channelers, and healers who have their received gift from God. They are applying religious trappings just as surely as did their hair-shirted anchorite ancestors, and strive for similar sainthood. The good guys are everywhere. Turn on the TV. Within 10 minutes, a commercial will dramatize the pleas of one of 1,000 non-profit charities. Such charities are spark plugs of the nation's economy. It's easy to see why. The donor good guy saves tax dollars. The recipient charity spends 90% of the money on, quote, overhead. Management draws inflated salaries and receives kickback tribute from vendors, who in turn are given dispensation to swell up with pride because of their good guy affiliation. If the donor donates his money directly to the government instead of a charity, his status would change from good guy to tax-paying boob, and such demotion would cost him more in the bargain. He would have to be crazy not to choose the good guy route. If the good guy donates time instead, that's all right too. They assist the charities by justifying the cost of building facilities and the spending of operational expenses. English nobility are at times forced to maintain their ancestral castles by conducting guided tours, complete in some cases with ghost noises and rattling chains. Nothing so fait in America. The palaces of the once immensely wealthy are being converted into foundations. In many instances, the original families stay put, simply yielding a few rooms to volunteers. In other cases, the foundation receives the property, lock, stock, and barrel, taking the distressed owner off the back tax hook. The former owner becomes a good guy, retiring with his good guy funds to a new high-rise or condominium. Chances are good that he was glad to be rid of his white elephant, where he rattled about for years with one or two surly servants. He has reached the point where he wants the very thing that his wealth alone may have neglected to bring: recognition. While he's still breathing, he can donate his great paintings to a museum's wing that bears his namesake and bask in good guy glory. Charities solicit those known to have an overabundance, not because they can afford to give more, but because they know if the, quote, philanthropist does not give, he will be depicted as a human monster. Charities choose slogans like, "You can't afford not to give," implying that those who refuse them will receive some sort of retribution for their miserliness. The trick of playing on the guilt of those who can. Mail-order evangelists have been known to bulk mail solicitation brochures depicting a bunch of bloat-bellied orphans standing in front of their foundation's buildings in Guatemala or Biafra or New Delhi. Investigation might reveal that the foundation's masonite sign covered New Era Export Company Limited, and those kids' faces beamed not for the Lord's blessing, but for the quarter's worth of legal tender promised them for posing. Good guy causes provide unlimited opportunity for hanky-panky, and not just of the fiduciary variety. If a volunteer of sterling moral propensities meets another equally proper, and equally married, co-worker under physically stimulating conditions, a merger might take place in the supply room one night. A rationale will be available, of course. Both parties share a common goal. Charities are as much an opportunity for social contact as the most blatant singles clubs or dance course, but allow the joiner to be a good guy instead of a wallflower or creep. Who could not find it admirable to want to save humanity? And animals and trees in addition. Or, Satan defend us, the desire to save the world. Actually, the madman who thinks in terms of ruling the world, and the equally daft individual who wants to save it, are usually one and the same. Those who wish to rule the world usually go about attaining their goal in the guise of saving it. Power-mad good guys sublimate these desires by trying to help rule through warfare or help save it through egalitarian politics. These helpers can wear their good guy badge without taking on the responsibilities or liabilities of a figurehead. A good guy who helps to save the world in the guise of an ecologist simply becomes a microcosmic god serving a macrocosmic client. It seems to me that the people who holler the most about ecology are the least capable of actually contributing to the planet's development. Quite obviously, the first place to start is to eliminate the source of the problem. The problem, of course, is people. Get rid of the people, and you will be rid of the problems they so desire to eliminate. The armchair liberals who speak reverently of ecological duty will be horrified to implement the totalitarian requirements of compulsory birth control. They shout, "Power to the people." Power to do what? Make a bigger mess? Where are all the little men with big ideas? There goes one now, pedaling by the luxury car show on his mountain bike, beads of sweat decorating his forehead like translucent jewels. Here comes another, putting by in his subcompact. Neither has any more self-awareness now than they did decades ago, when they tooled along in their 300 horsepower monsters. The man on the bike is wealthy. The one in the small car is not. Mr. Cyclist rides one of his good guy badges and gets healthier in the bargain. Little man in the car rides in one of his good guy badges and can actually afford to maintain it. Turn back the clock and listen to another kind of logic. Nobody would buy a small car because it was unsafe, embarrassing, and unheard of. Only youths and eccentrics rode bicycles. Youths because they weren't old enough to drive, and eccentrics because it was healthy. But anyone who was a health faddist had to be a nut. Are we to assume that man is the only living organism that cannot adjust to its environment? If bugs actually thrive on the pesticides that once fell them, will man's body not accept pollutants, chemical preservatives, etc., as another development of his natural evolution? Why are the most sickly-looking people the ones usually seen emerging from health food stores? Could it be that their stringent dietary habits fail to immunize them from poisonous foods they are on occasion likely to ingest? If ecology good guys want to practice what they preach, let them establish colonies in undeveloped areas and maintain them with as little contact as possible with the outside world. A few actually have done so, and they are to be admired. They are creating a society from an undeveloped environment. However, it is the most important ingredient of all in the life of the good guy, the lack of which makes his badge meaningless. That missing ingredient is an audience. I will tell you a story. There was a hermit who lived in a deep wood near a small town. Once each year, on the first day of May, he would stand at the edge for a little while. Then he would go back into the woods, not to be seen again for exactly 1 year. He had done this for 20 years, and the only reason he was ever seen was because the children had held a maypole dance in the clearing at the edge of the wood. After the 5th year of regular appearances, he became an institution among the townspeople. In fact, it became a feature of the festivities to gather and wait for the hermit to make his appearance. So the hermit became the town's best-known celebrity, solely on the strength of his yearly appearance. On the 21st year, he did not appear. Near panic ensued. A search party was formed and the woods scoured. The hermit was nowhere to be found. The townspeople sadly returned to their homes and stores. The next day, the hermit came walking down the main street of town. Everyone ran up to him and told him of their concern and how glad they were to see him. They insisted that he stay in town and not return to the woods ever again. They not only took care of him, but elected him mayor. He was not really a hermit, though, nor had he ever been one. A hermit lives alone, without human contact. That man simply had infinite patience and a responsive audience. He was a good showman who became a politician. Like some hermits, all wearers of good guy badges need an audience. Just as an evangelist needs an environment of sinners in which to operate, the ecology good guy requires a polluted urban area. Despite the obvious abundance of sunshine, fresh air, and healthful living, blind men seldom join nudist camps. The closest thing to unabashed slickerism many rustics can witness is in the evangelist tent. A man of God can fleece unconsciously willing victims even easier than a hustler peddling non-godly wares. The good guy badge that the evangelist supplies in exchange for his thievery ensures his success. Those with a minimum of guilt will become their own victims, and their few inner demons will become the engine for various excesses and vices. Those guilts are greater and more guarded in their actions. They are always looking for someone who will take advantage of them. I have heard many men and women confess, "I know he or she is conning me, but I find it so entertaining, I really don't mind." When these people are berated for their lack of discrimination or poor judgment, they invariably become all the more attracted to their exploiters. The sin-killing preacher is the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. His followers demand that he be so. Despite the luxury cars, dapper clothes prompted by these accoutrements rarely discourage the faithful. The more grandiose the crusade, the more satisfied are their customers. The guilty are relieved of their guilt and inhibitions, especially in the more violent forms of religious ecstasy. What, it will be asked, is so terrible about such an arrangement? Nothing. Nothing but self-deceit. God in Jesus maketh the evil man good, the vicious man kind, the smitten man grateful, the victim happy. What would happen if those divine names were no longer potent enough to placate the weak and inadequate? What of the future, when deceit and treachery will be as easily read as one's name and address? when victims, however willing, will be seen as they are, victims. When self-deceit can no longer go unnoticed by others, no one will wish to show himself as a fool. Vehicles for self-deceit will either be employed within one's private chamber or publicly presented as amusements, nothing more. Ominous prophecies of an elite thought police will prove to be unfounded. New findings in character analysis will render everyone a potential thought policeman. It will become as easy to access another's motivations as it is to tell the color of his eyes. The badge of the good guy will be visible in every mannerism, and no amount of affectation or protective plumage will disguise character flaws. And the truly good guy will be seen for his inherent goodness, no matter how evil his superficial trappings may be. How refreshing it would be to hear a political candidate say, "I don't believe in God, but in the protection of citizens' health and safety, I plan on placing my friends in executive positions. I will pocket what funds I can get away with, but see that the rest is spent on necessary social improvements. You will have no voice in my decisions any more than you ever had. You will have to accept my judgment, which you will, so long as you are reasonably comfortable, and have freedom of movement and opportunity for advancement. If I succeed in fooling the public will have themselves to blame. For I warn you that I am as crooked as any politician can be. Despite my unsavory profession, I will try to keep all of you as happy as possible." The Church of Satan. Cosmic Joy Buzzer. In 1966, the Church of Satan was born. A witch named Sybil leaked on America, and a placental membrane began thickening over the land, which was to be called the occult movement. Sure, there had been those who sent to a Rosicrucian scribe on the back of a magazine cover for the secrets of man's destiny, attended flying saucer conventions, held hands at spiritualists' closed circles, and read their daily horoscopes. Dennis Wheatley was a blighty hack who shuddered pudding-faced Englishwomen to sleep in their flats. A renegade named Seabrook wrote about strange doings among werewolves and lady vampires, and incidentally, whose asylum was the original Cuckoo's Nest. And two guys named Simmons and Mannix chronicled, respectively, the exploits of the wickedest man in the world and the Hellfire Club. One could obtain the 6th and 7th books of Moses and the Albertus Magnus in paper before they were called paperbacks. An old man named Roy Heist made a good copy selling mummy's dust to witch doctors. Sure, there was an occult movement before the year 1. A movement like a slumbering wino, shifting position in a doorway. No detailed chronology is required to illustrate the events of the past 10 years. Concurrent with the increasingly liberal social climate of the 60s, many former taboos became relaxed. The dark side displayed itself in polite society, where beatnik poets and bongo drummers had flourished, where witches and tarot readers held court. To most theologians, only a single entity was responsible for everything from prophecy to meditation. No matter how innocuous an esoteric act, or voluble its practitioner's disclaimer, the devil was to blame. Satan headed more copy concerning the occult than any other teaser. TV movie adaptations of classic Gothic ghost stories were pushed as satanic. Despite indignant attempts to differentiate witchcraft from Satanism, the public insisted on lumping them together in a willing and eager suspension of disbelief. Despite curanderous murmurings of God-given powers, Fundamentalists still denounce them as part of the occult movement and minions of Satan. The lack of imagination and staying power of the occult movement is showing through the veneer of the incompetents who fill its ranks. As the varnish peels away, the occultist image has become almost as ridiculous as the Bible-thumping evangelists. The Church of Satan could easily become a psychical Ellis Island of refugees and emigres from the occult scene. Displaced persons who have lost their covens, 90-day magi, ware of pondering the Enochian keys and Crowleyanity. Chasuble queens who couldn't make it in the Catholic Church, woebegone Wiccans who find that the goddess's bosom has run dry, Egyptoids who'd be better off as Shriners or in Laurel and Hardy's, Sons of the Desert, pyramid sitters who've gained nothing but claustrophobia, Atlanteans who get seasick, UFOites who've redefined gravitational law but can't chin themselves, witless wizards, sex-starved witches, despite diviners, short-sighted psychics, all the growing residue of a phenomenon that, because of its very popularity, had to lose the magic it purported. Satan translates to mean opposite, lest the Satanic Bible be forgotten. The essence of Satanism is what tips the balance and starts the pendulum swinging in the other direction. That is why the facts of Satanism are so often harsher than the most gothic melodrama or speculative science-forward fiction. This actual harness is registered in the dismay of some new applicants who'd been enmeshed in the waning occult scene. Interest in the Church of Satan has never been greater, but I don't kid myself into thinking that it's because people are more enlightened than ever before, only more disillusioned and or bored. Nonetheless, I realize that with the decline in the occult movement as a credible identity factor, we have been blessed with an influx of salvageable human potential from the aforementioned categories, as well as non-joiners who had been waiting until the dust settled. Thus, the elitism I envisioned in the beginning has materialized fourfold. In 10 years of existence, the Church of Satan has fueled a philosophical counterculture which could have, if unchecked, thrown the baby out with the bathwater. It invoked imaginative permissiveness, rational self-interest, and forced a dying theology into ludicrous last-ditch behavior, witch-mobiles, papal pronouncements, etc., or running scared reinterpretation, suddenly keeping up with social changes. It also pumped hordes of creeps up till their newly discovered godheads developed leaks or just plain busted. The ad sections of Fate magazine contain as prolific a source of gifted psychics, institutes of cosmic consciousness, and pushers of awareness as can be found in the contact columns of swingers tabloids or underground newspapers. Add the parasitic fringe, the X's who seek recognition as ex-witches, ex-Satanists, ex-Orsized, or any other wish they could have but couldn't cut it types. Yes, the occult movement has provided countless persons with delusions of adequacy. Why has Satanism succeeded? Because from our earliest literature, through the Satanic Bible, we have made no grandiose promises of infallible enlightenment and emphasized that each must be his own redeemer. That the extent of one's superiority, if any, is governed by one's human potential. That Satan is a representational concept, accepted by each according to his or her needs. That is the way it was in the beginning. That is the way it is now. We have rejected that which becomes faddish. while championing the unfashionable. When the monkey see, monkey do syndrome appears, even on the left-hand path, then we don't. We have utilized the best from the worst, and discerned the worst in the best, and gained through each. We have defied categorization, confounding labelers, knowing that the one label we bear, Satan, is controversy in itself. In looking back over a decade, it is easy to isolate each phase of our development. It has been not only rewarding as a lesson in behavioral psychology, but has inadvertently served as what sociologists refer to as an unfunded research project. The first phase, emergence, crystallized the zeitgeist into reality, let loose the knowledge of a satanic body politic into a ready but dumbfounded social climate. The second phase, development, saw an organizational and institutional expansion as a result of carefully stimulated exploitation, attracting a variety of human types from which to distill a satanic ideal. The third phase, qualification, provided sufficient elucidation to establish the tenets of contemporary Satanism, contrary to prior or current misinterpretation. The Satanic Bible, satanic rituals, and satanic witch might have been conveniently overlooked, but were readily obtainable to any who chose to gain knowledge of our doctrine and methodology. An aura of respectability prevailed, often to a point of overcompensation, to counterbalance inaccurate presumptions by the outside world. The fourth phase, control, encouraged dispersion and the Peter principle as a means of isolating the ideal evaluated from phase 2. Deinstitutionalism separated the builders from the dwellers, thus filtering and stratifying what began as an initiatory organization or persuasion into a definite social structure. The fifth phase, application, establishes tangible fruition, the beginning of a harvest, so to speak. Techniques, having been developed, can be employed. The myths of the 20th century are recognizable and exploitable as essential stimuli. Human foibles may be viewed with an understanding toward radical embellishment. The Ides of March had spent its madness, and the equinox produced its climatic. At dusk on the eve of the new satanic age, I immersed my razor in the waters of Zamzam and embarked upon a new role. I sometimes wonder, would things have been any different without ceremony? Did a ritualistic catalyst help to convince this Pyrrhonic devil that his destiny was being properly exercised? Symbolism, ritual, ceremony, totem, and taboo will always exist and develop or wane as conditions dictate. As Satanists, you must perceive such things and, having perceived, select or reject in accordance with your needs. Countercultures invariably wind up as dominant cultures. When the occult, hidden, becomes fashionable, it is no longer a cult. Yet there will always be a dark side. It is the natural Satanist who will be drawn into the abyss of difference, whether it be abstract or concrete. Those who have tarried these part-short years in fixed abstractions can feel the warmth provided by their temporal identities cooling. Frightening, they know not what icons to take up and are befuddled with devaluated doctrines and constrained by programmed hypotheses. Many will become Satanists who would once have shunned the name. Others will continue to eschew the name, yet survive on the byproducts of Satanism, as they have unwittingly or unadmittedly done in the past. For those who are the lost, the disenfranchised, the bored, the ambivalent, we have prepared a place. The past decade has been the years and given me the feedback any symbolic leader requires. To those of you who were with me in the beginning when the show got on the road, and to you who have since become part of us in mind, body, or out of just plain orneriness, I am grateful for your support. Evil is still live spelled backwards, and if evil we be, live we will. Living well is still the best revenge against all adversity. Love, laugh, fancy, create, innovate, reap, and revel as Satanists in the best of all worlds, world without end. Remember, the first 99 years are always the toughest. Rege Satanas. By any other name. Many are those who study the art of the children of darkness, who call themselves by the names of witch and warlock, who gaze at crystals, read the tarot, divine by diverse means, and seek success through paths of magic. All these play at the devil's game, and take the devil's tools in their quest for crumbs of power. In the name of all who suffered and died as agents of the devil in ages past, the present band of heretics, those who would deny the devil yet play his game, must be called to task. Greater is their folly than the strictest Protestant, Catholic, Jew, or Buddhist. More cowardly are they than the whining informer who plucked at the sleeve of the Inquisitor. More flagrant is their hypocrisy than he who reads pornography in order to warn others. These are the pursuers of dubious power, the searchers for riches, the buyers of hidden secrets, the purchasers of shortcuts, the sniveling army of the have-nots who feel themselves deserving of the bounties of life, but have found no miracles in the churches in which they prayed. So now we see them as they swarm about us, purchasing the journals of deceit, the source books of diabolical supplies, the catalogues of the magical art. They read and contemplate and read some more. They study the rites of Lucifer and the mysteries of creation and the spell and charms, and they call themselves by innocuous names. And they play at the games which caused our forebears to be tortured as the agents of Satan. And what do they do now? Now that it is safe and clear to use his great infernal name? They deny him. They have the opportunity to take up the very creed of defamation which killed their brothers and sisters of the past, and cast that creed before the world in triumphant mockery of its age of unreason. But no, they do not thrust the bifid barb of Satan aloft and shout, "He has triumphed! Rege Satanas!" His art and works which brought men to the rack and thumbscrew can now be learned in safety. But no, he is denied by those who cry up his art and ply his work. In the safety of their flimsy dens, they say the calls. In the warmth of their parlors, they push their planchettes, and read the cards, and cast the runes, and call forth the dead, and even wear the horns. Seldom in these places is Satan found, for these are the frightened mystics of the new Christianity, and the trembling cowards scurry round the openings to the grottos of hell. And like vermin, they furtively nibble upon the newly emerged devil wisdom. Little do they realize the folly of their cowardice. Ages come and ages go, and cycles reverse themselves with the wondrous periodicity that only nature can sustain, and now we all walk upon the upper world. Those who play the game of self-denial in its traditionally simplistic forms, and showed themselves to be consistent in their Christ-mongering, can find absolution from their sins within our fold. But those who play the devil's game, yet cloak themselves in righteousness, besmirch the names of those who bore the mark of brand and tongs, and gazed upon their dead and dying with curses softly spoken. Knew they not, the tortured, that one day men would ply the devil's handiwork, the work that was grounds for rack and candle? Knew they not, the knights of the temple, that one day men would fashion spells in the clear moonlight, free from the snare of the heretic hook, yet deny and denounce the benediction of Satan? The tongs have gathered rust, and the racks snarl as they turn from lack of oiling. The morning stars have dust between their spikes, and the iron maiden is cold and yearning for a lover to embrace. The ghosts of the devil-bought will take up the instruments of their destruction and march forth, and their prey will be those scavengers of the arts which once meant devil wisdom, and to this day remain as such. Let it be known that every man who delves into the arts of darkness must give the devil and his children the due their years of infamy deserve. Satan's name will not be denied. Let no man shun or mock his name who plays his winning game, or despair, depletion, and destruction await. The combination lock principle. Magic is like a combination lock. If each tumbler falls into place, the lock will open. Seldom are any two locks the same. Their physical appearance might be identical, but the combination of numbers necessary to open each is different. So it is with both individual magical working and those who attempt them. Goals may appear identical in nature, and magicians similar in training and outward characteristics, but there the similarity stops. No one can teach another a combination that is his own, for it would not work. Each person possesses his own inclinations, his own gestalt, so he must ascertain what works best for him. There is nothing intrinsically esoteric about any combination which will lead to an ultimately successful working, unless one considers the keeping of the secret combination esoteric, for it is literally that. If the truth is to be known, greater magic is simply a means of formalizing acts which in and of themselves would elicit no attention were they to be carried out without ritualistic trappings. Hence, a ritual chamber is necessary to make the practitioner feel like a magician, intensifying awareness of his own potential, if any exists. Once one understands his potential, reinforcement supplied by the trappings of a ritual chamber can be superfluous. It's only then, when one can get down to brass tacks, the combination. Spatial concepts contribute 3 dimensions to the combination. The 4th dimension exists in time. If the other 3 dimensions are placed in correct combination, then the 4th dimension, hence in each instance the spatial or physical boundaries of 3 dimensions, must be present in suitable combination to effect said phenomena. Every occurrence happens somewhere. It is that somewhere, in combination with the magician serving as a catalyst, which makes the untoward occur. Somewheres need not be spatialized enclosures in the obvious sense, but can be fields, cliffs, streets, woods, and rivers, as well as structures. Just as a rainbow is composed of harmonics of light, it is somewhere relative to our vantage point. Though were we to enter its apparent field, it would no longer visibly exist. The only way to see a rainbow is from afar, yet it still exists. The fable of the rainbow, with its pot of gold waiting at its base, is the story of man's delusion and disappointment. The magician must realize that his search does not end at the base of the rainbow. He must bypass it for the somewhere over the rainbow. There are no curricula for such a search. The combination needed for a controlled working might place the magician not only in diverse places, but in diverse positions and acts. He might need to read a certain book at a certain time and a certain place. Each acts to drop a tumbler in the combination lock. How does one go about discovering these combinations? One doesn't. They discover him if he is responsive to their appearance. Sensitivity is essential. The harder one looks, the less he will find. Seek and ye shall find is a platitude as half-truthful as the truth will make you free. One can seek until he drops and pass up the answers many times if he hasn't the sensitivity to recognize them when confronted by them. The truth can be screamed from 1,000 rooftops, and unless it is convenient to hear, it will fall on deaf ears. The most profound acts of magic just seem to happen. That is because the sets of circumstances which bring them about go unrecognized. Recognition is the key. How can one recognize such combinations when blind to even the most obvious motivations and actions? Or threatened by the accomplishments of another, when one's ego must be strong and secure to become a mage? Choosing not to recognize is good practice for letting important things pass you by. Peace of mind might be attained, but accomplishment will be missing. If one's ultimate peace of mind rests upon the fulfillment of certain goals, the peace of mind accrued by desensitivity to the obvious is tragically fleeting. The ultimate letdown, which is bound to occur, will make one even more prone to ignorance. Then, contradictory though it may seem, ignorance will become one's sole intellectual and emotional salvation. Parallels in the foregoing statement, as related to organized religions, should be amply evident. Ravings from Tartarus. Probably the most oft-asked question I receive from practitioners of satanic magic is, why doesn't my ritual seem to have any effect? My answer to this question is invariably because it matters so much to you. Once a ritual has been properly performed, it should not matter whether or not you see results, for you have supposedly attained, through surrogate means, your original intent. Having gotten it out of your system should free you from further concern. This can be likened to an ambivalent feeling towards sex immediately following an exhausting and rewarding sexual experience. The surest way of succeeding in cursing an enemy is to find a new and equally questionable enemy immediately following the curse you have thrown at your first enemy. If you are inclined toward making enemies, this should present no problem. If not, there are hordes of reprehensible people walking in the streets in any community. As potential enemies go, the supply far exceeds the demand. Status is always a deterrent to magical success insofar as dwelling on the object of your working is concerned. Always move on. Never dwell on your desire in dragged-out bits and pieces. Ritualize it out of your system, even if it means isolating yourself in obsessive and painful seclusion. Burn every bit of desire out of your system, and then, when you no longer care, it will come to you. How can one avoid caring? There are many tricks which can be employed. Creativity is one. When you are in the process of creating something, your brain must function on a creative level, not on a rote or repetitive one. Your mind cannot be possessed by one thing and yet be in the likeness of your obsession. Here we find an ideal combination, for if the hands can create a facsimile of the desired objective with such dexterity as to be convincing, then it is as good as done. If this method is employed, it follows the original need that is no longer of serious consequence, for your creation has sated your desire. Thus you no longer require what your ritual was originally intended to produce. To oversimplify, though I do not advocate such action, if you want money and cannot get it, and you create an approximation of money, sometimes called counterfeiting, the material rewards received could well equal those you would get had you acquired real money. Your need for the real thing no longer matters. Epicurean masturbation is a perfect example of this theory. Once one's ego flaws have been overcome, it may be realized that an artificial fantasy is infinitely superior to a lousy lay. Yet how often we observe the eternal sexual chase temporarily cease with any old port-in-a-storm partner. Further frustration ensues. Them that has, gets. Until one has, he'll never get. And you don't get it by taking someone else's either. You create your own. If you can't figure that one out, you're not much of a magician. We all know the reason white witches' curses bounce back. If these crones are consumed with enough guilt to call themselves white witches, their dastardly act of cursing is indeed threefold guilt-producing, thereby ensuring the backfire of their curses. Here again we observe a static situation engendered by constant re-internalization of the problem for which the rite was performed. Have you noticed how white witches, whether traditional, Gardnerian, etc., are perennially raising issues? Their morass of secular dissension is tempered by the blessed fact that a common enemy exists, the Satanist. The fact that we have not gone out of our way to stress the difference between witchcraft and Satanism, seemingly their favorite topic, indicates our emancipation from the need for what Thomas Zah's terms the other. Satanically speaking, whatever it is, we're for it, because it is the harbinger of reality. Magically speaking, however, we must take Groucho Marx's stand in the film Horse Feathers, where, as Professor Quincy Adams Wagstaff, he sings his nihilistic credo, whatever it is, I'm against it. In this sense, we accept it, mediocrity, fashion, the status quo, etc., as a fulcrum point from which to launch the pendulum in the opposite, satanic, direction. Thus we realize that issues, human ideals that they are not only transitory, but easily predictable.